Hello everyone, this is Frenchy. Welcome back to Cooking with me. I hope you had a lovely week and it's good to see you back. So before we go any further, don't forget to subscribe and change your notification bell setting. Today's recipe is about the sourdough starter. Everyone at the moment is baking at home. This pandemic has been very critical to everybody. And if you want to keep your sanity and make your own bread, there's no better time to start a good sourdough. So the question is, what is a sourdough starter? A sourdough starter is a natural leavening agent. It's there to make your bread rise without you using any dry yeast than we use in commercial baking. So that's what we call an artisan bread, or the art of making bread. Yes, that's right. Yeast is found in the air, it's everywhere, and it's been cultivated over the years to create that commercial aspect. But once upon a time, we had a lot of bakers in Europe who were just making bread from just water and a mix of wheat or grains. That's how it was. The ancestor flours is the buckwheat or the wholemeal flour, when the meal were not that powerful and when we didn't have that systematic bleaching of flour we find now. So, question. People say, what kind of flour should I use? Well, a lot of people will tell you unbleached flour, or will tell you organic flour, or just plain flour. It's up to you. Personally, this recipe today is using rye, and I'm also using baker's flour. Why baker's flour? Because it has a high percentage of gluten, which help my bread leavening and let my bread rise. The other key point is, what other ingredients are into a sourdough starter? Well, once upon a time, it was just water and flour. And that's fermentation together over a period of few days, few weeks, few months, create that sourdough starter. So the recipe I show you today, it's about a 4-day process. Then you can start to do your sourdough. Your sourdough starter is going to get better and better as you feed it. And I will also show you how to feed that sourdough starter. My sourdough starter, right now, it's only a month old. I started about 4 weeks ago during this calm down stage. And for my recipe, I use a little bit of water, honey, resin, dates, some rye flour, and baker's flour. So a lot of people ask me, okay, how do I do it? How does it work? And you will see, it's amazing. It's like a little bit of a science experimentation that you can do at home. So what do you need for it? I strongly recommend that you use a jar, your vessel, ready to make the sourdough. Also, if you can, thermometer. Now, that's very nice to see the temperature of your sourdough. We like your water and your sourdough to be at about 20-25 degrees. Room temperature gives a better development. Something important that every baker and pastry chef should have, it's a digital scale. And because I'm making quite a big quantity for myself, it's another vessel. The things you got to understand before you start your sourdough, it's how much bread are you going to make? How many times a week are you going to bake? And that's a key to your recipe and process. If you only bake once a week for a big loaf of 900 grams, you should only use about 60 grams of sourdough. So you will really need about 120 grams, 150 grams of sourdough per week. So think about it. How much bread are you going to bake? So previously you boil some hot water, or you leave it at room temperature for about 2 hours to reduce chemical. I'm adding a bit of honey. So I use about 350 ml of water and 25 grams of honey. And this is the process of doing a maceration or fermentation of raisins and dates to give a stronger flavor and color to my sourdough. So I prepared this 4 days in advance. So I'm mixing water and honey, and I will add my raisins, about 100 grams, and I used 50 grams of dates. So dry raisins, dry dates. I chop the dry dates, give it a quick mix, close the lid, and leave that at room temperature for about 4 days. When the 4 days are done, prepare all your ingredients to actually make your sourdough starter. So I'm having here flour. I use baker's flour, a bit of a rye flour. So I have a sieve, a clean bowl, and another vessel, a clean jar. Using my spatula, you could use a fork. So after 4 days, you will see my raisins are quite plump. And that's normal, they absorb part of the liquid and will have a nice dark brown color and nice flavor. Furthermore, the honey and the raisins also give sugar to my water, which give a natural sense of feeding to my natural yeast present in my flour. So using a clean jar, I put my rye flour and my baker's flour. As I mentioned, you could use plain flour. It does work too. And you could also use just plain water. I am not going to use the entire liquid. However, I kept the liquid in a container and also freeze it just in case for further use to give a bit of a stronger feeling to my sourdough after 2 or 3 months. So I close the lid, shake both flour together just to mix them, put the liquid that I need. So I use about 150 ml of water, flavored water. Give it a good mix. Like I said, I use a spatula, you could use a fork. Later on I use a fork. And here you got a pasty, a little bit lumpy starter. And there you are, you have made your first starter. How easy was that? What you need to do now is to use a clean cloth. You could chief, a neckerchief. But before that, I really put a little mark on my jar. Always use a water jar, a glass jar, it's better. So I tied up the cloth on top and I leave it at room temperature for 4 days. When we mean room temperature, we mean rooms at about 20-24 degrees. So that's when I started. 12 hours later, so be patient. And 24 hours later, it doubled in size. And that's normal, so that's the natural organic process. Now in terms of the feeding, after 24 hours I'm feeding my sourdough. So here what I did is to add my starter into a bigger jar, and I had water, so about 100 ml of water here, and I added 50 grams of rye and 50 grams of baker's flour. So same amount of water for the same amount of flour. Give it a good mix, and there you have fed your baby, or some other people call it mother. You should give it a name, it's quite fun. Every chef give a name to their sourdough starter. Mine is RBF, resting bitch face, because she's sour. That's the name of my sourdough. But there you go, that's the feeding process. Repeat the same process day 2, day 3, day 4. As you see, I'm adding more flour to it, and there you go, that's the fermentation. After day 4, you can discard half of your sourdough and use half of it, and half you keep and you feed it again. You can keep it in the fridge for 1 week and feed it only once a week if you bake once a week. So as I'm talking to you, I've got something very special here. That's not the starter, but that's the sourdough in the making. Look at that, gently raising slowly. And I'm sure you will see that natural yeast. I'm sure you will see much more of my bread, much more of my recipe. This week is about the starter. Keep focus on it. Keep focus on feeding your starter properly. And next week I'll share my recipe on how I make the sourdough itself. You have a lovely week. Thank you for watching. If you are like me and you like holes in your bread, or you like nice buns, or you prefer a hard French stick, make sure to watch my next video about how I make a sourdough.